Yes, honestly the essence. This wave is uncontainable, facts are undebatable. You lanes are unrelatable. Give a fuck about saving you. We could keep on playing you. You just keep complaining too. Game is unescapable unless you're with the gang or no.
Messing with the penguin. We're messing with the penguin. 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 Fucking with the penguins. Yeah, with the penguins. Coming with a vengeance, trying to make you come to your senses. Forget the general consensus, just pay attention. The rules to hell is paid for good intentions. I'm clenching my back wrenching, representing only the most superior, independent media. We got that real shit fucking encyclopedia. We're bringing an end to this mass hysteria. They wanna know why it's so serious, cause you must be delirious. If you're still believing stuff, get a grip and show some evidence for your own claims. We don't play no games, we stay relentless, exposing hopes against when the IPS are making an entrance. Button doors down, cause now's the time for interventions. Did I mention we're affecting so many men across the spectrum? We stand out from the crowd, we don't blend in. Steady gaining tremendous momentum. There's nothing close resembling. Check the emblem, it's a penguin, not a gremlin. Just letting you know you're on an infinite plane, it's never bending. We strike like temping, killing all fears and breaking the tension. Gotta know the Hopes Army, digging deep in the trenches. Come and join in, be adventurous. Quit being so sensitive, forget the censorship. We ain't telling fibs. Messing with the penguin.
Okay, we are live, 1/26/2024, IPS Evening Deprogram. Title of tonight's live stream, Kobe Psyop Hoaxiversery and World Stage Deforestation. Just sent out live stream notifications. Going through some of the comments, a number of people have already showed up. Diana South says, is that COVID cuties or COVID cooties? My hearing is shot. It might be a Mandela effect. I thought it was COVID cooties, but it sounds like cuties. It depends, but I hear it both ways. I'm that reality fluid. I can take a Mandela effect as GIF or Jiffy. Neither of them bother me. I'm somewhat Mandela ambiguous. Alright, joined by Diana South again, G33, Salty Siren, J Diggs, Elephant Tusks, says 2020 vibes. J Diggs, Copaesthetic, Infinite Plane Never Bendin', exactly. And the lines in this, I mean, that track, that song, Fepe Akbar, which is true. He is. We are indeed. Great. Into the Beyond, Angst G, J-Man 33. Okay, excellent. Let's go ahead and get started. So today is the anniversary of the Kobe explosion, and we took that psyop apart, but there's more to it. I didn't know that he was there at the very beginning of the I Can't Breathe campaign, which ties into everything else. In fact, we'll get into the Kobe psyop thing, and also the other thing, World Stage Deforestation. I want to talk about the fact that most truthers are running laps around big, fake trees. There's a forest of fakery, but they see a big fake tree called 9/11. They see a big fake tree called COVID. They see a big fake tree, and they run laps around it for decades. Meanwhile, they're missing the fact that there's an entire forest. So here we are, clear-cutting the forest of fake trees, the forest of disinformation, and they're telling us we're going too far. Everything can't be fake. Focus on the big things. And I'm like, no, you can't be chasing these stale red herrings, following breadcrumbs or Q drops for another cycle. We're reliving 2016 all over again. And I'm thinking this is a great point where we can diverge. And this does represent a divergence, philosophically, at least. And it's a reintroduction of some old concepts, but in a new world where everyone is expected to walk around with the digital hoodwink on, treating the screen as a window to tell you what's going on in the world far away, when it's always been a filter. It's always been a liar. Alright, let's go ahead and dive in. Most of you know that the explosion of Kobe Bryant's helicopter was preceded by copious predictive programming, from commercials with Ye, well, Kanye at the time, where they throw a basketball at the helicopter and it blows up, to a cartoon, Legends of Chamberlain Heights, where Kobe is literally blowing up in a helicopter. So there's a theme. There was a Kobe helicopter toy that was given away at a game the night he died. We find all these things. But I remember that immediately after his death, his crash was reported, there was a social media influencer. I don't recall his name, but he was a pretty big within the manosphere, and he tweeted out, "I can't breathe." And I took note of that because this was, again, 5 months before George Floyd. But Kobe Bryant's death actually played a big role in the summer of 2020 as NBA was celebrating Mamba Week and everyone was wearing the number 42 to celebrate his posthumous 42nd birthday. And this was going along with, concurrent with the death of Chadwick Boseman, who played Jackie Robinson, Mr. 42. So the MLB, all wearing 42s. So there was a lot of overlapping symbolism with the deaths of these characters. And I use the word characters advisedly. And what I'm pointing out here is that the death of Kobe Bryant stood out for a few reasons because, one, we were predicting that the end of January we would have some kind of airborne conflagration, some kind of immolation. We thought it was going to come from NASA. Although this was the week that Musk did have a dummy explode. If you remember, they sacrificed the Falcon to the Dragon's fire. We called this because this is the week of the Challenger explosion, and we had reasons to think that there's some significance to that week. If you remember, the Challenger exploded 19 years to the day practically after the Apollo 1 disaster. So there's something about immolations, fiery deaths, happening in the sky around this time of the year. And we more or less predicted it, but it wasn't from NASA. We had both, again, the Falcon being sacrificed by Musk that week, but also this. And here's Kobe Bryant in a cartoon, Legends of Chamberlain Heights. As you'll see, he explodes in a helicopter.
Oh shit! It's Kobe Bryant! Help me! Just pass me the trophies and we'll pull you out! Pass!
Okay, very morbid. So it's a cartoon that crashes. He has the two trophies. He hands them over to these two individuals and he says, "Pass." We dissected this little clip and it has a lot of layered symbolism, which I'm not going to get into now. But the Los Angeles Lakers gave fans a toy Kobe Bryant helicopter for his last game. And it was reported that the helicopter exploded. And, I mentioned the 42s. His big thing was the number 24. And Kobe Bryant also had his 666 workout. So if you don't know, there's all kinds of Kobe Bryant 666 allusions to his soul being sold, his death being faked. Kobe Bryant workout routine, the 666, named from the fact that he works out, it's like 6 hours a day, formula 666. 6 hours a day, 6 days a week, 6 months a year. Kobe's 666 workout plan. Again, par for the course, nothing surprising. This is, again, fake until proven real, and there's no evidence that it was real, buried at Corona del Mar. And interestingly, it seemed to be almost like the starting point, like the starting gun goes off. When Kobe blew up, it seemed like the COVID thing became real. So we're looking at this thing as notable for those reasons. And there's a kind of a side story. The manager of the Lakers he told this story. He's hanging out with The Rock, and he was talking about how Kobe Bryant was so moved by the performance of Heath Ledger in Batman Rises, in Dark Knight Rises. He was so impressed by the Joker that he had to go have dinner with Heath Ledger and ask him how he got into the role. And according to the manager of the Lakers, after Kobe had dinner with Heath Ledger, he started taking some of what he learned from Ledger's Joker role and applied it to his game and played better. Now, the only problem is Heath Ledger had died 6 months before Dark Knight Rises came out. So how did Kobe have dinner with him? That story makes no sense. The Rock was there when it was told, and looking back at it, I thought, maybe he wasn't supposed to tell the story, but maybe Kobe did go talk to Heath Ledger, death faker. Hey, I'm going to fake my death too next year. Any advice? Anyway, that's the only rational explanation for the story. AJ206 says Kobe is out there on some island with Nipsey and Bowie and Prince. Out there in Terra Mar. Dinah South says, excellent Penguinati chainsaw massacre. Yeah, if you're wondering what those mean, this whole clear cutting of the forest thing, it's something I take kind of seriously because we were being spied on by the Daily Beast. And the Daily Beast described our Discord server as S posting into oblivion. And they said that it was the information equivalent of clear cutting a forest. And I agree with them. It is absolutely the information equivalent of clear cutting a forest. But they said so with some measure of trepidation. They were terrified, like these guys are just nihilists. But the fact of it is, the mainstream media is a reality wood chipper. And we're the only ones putting things together in a cohesive way. We're getting rid of the fake trees. And when we find trees that aren't fake, we don't cut them down. It's not our fault that the forest is being clear cut. We're not the ones who planted all the fake trees. And these things were planted before we started investigating and testing everything. So you're going to see more and more of these penguins with the chainsaws with the word auto hoaxer on the blade. Again, if you want to sign up to the newsletter, you'll be getting these in your inbox. And I'm putting these on coffee mugs, t-shirts, keychains, and everything else. So you'll want to check out the shop once in a while as well. Okay, let's continue. G33 says numbers, numbers, numbers. Oh yeah. Mango Penguin says you're pulling weeds. Oh yeah, we deal with that as well. Okay, let's move on. I have a ton of notes to go through today. And the Kobe Bryant thing is just part of what I want to discuss. The border thing we have to talk about because there's a lot of MAGAs heading down to the border to fight the immigrants or fight the government who says you can't stop letting the immigrants in. And then you have a number of governors who all agree with Trump that it needs to be stopped. And I'm seeing a lot of people say stuff like this. They're sending paid operators to incite another January 6th. In other words, people are assuming that whatever's going to happen at the border is real. No, if something blows up at the border, let's say there's some kind of battle at the Alamo, it's staged and fake as January 6th. There's no reason to just begin with the assumption, or at least maybe the benefit of the doubt, that it might be real. We know too much to fall for that. It's not going to be real. And they will set something off and people will respond as though it's real, but then the right wing is going to say, oh, it's real, but it was instigated, or there's feds. So they always have an excuse to not take credit for it, but also to maintain its reality. So what I told this person is that January 6th was not incited. It was a simulated riot. Again, simulated, not stimulated. And Ashley Babbitt's not dead. And it's kind of strange when I tell them this, because January 6ers, or the supporters of the official narrative and the inside jobbers, you tell them Ashley Babbitt's not dead and they get mad at you. They're like, how dare you? She's dead. She's our martyr. I'm like, no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to break it to you, but your martyr, your friend, did not get shot in the neck. Sorry to break it to you. And I'm just always perplexed by these death clingers who get really mad when you tell them the truth about how something's actually fake. And they can't see that as good news. No, they just love walking around with the fake blood on their hands, pretending like they have a point, that they weren't baited with some kind of emotional appeal. Joined by Clockwork 113. Thank you for joining. Shadow of Ezra says, some people are heading to the border to stop the Biden invasion. I don't see this as a good idea at the moment. We know the FBI, the CIA, and the Black Hats want a false flag similar to January 6th. You see this? Calling it a false flag. This is misinformation. This is meant to get the alternative thinkers to assume it's real, but there's some shenanigans at work. And then you can be a detective from your computer and investigate the border from there. No, it's not how it works. We know this, but people are going to fall for this, and it's predictable. Like Charlie Brown running to kick the football, we know the football is going to be moved before he kicks. But you see a lot of people with flags marching to the border because the internet told them to.
This is what we pray for.
Hold the line, heading to Texas to stop the Biden border invasion. And, I found an interesting thing, because I've been talking about how the attitude towards illegal aliens on the right, the threat they represent, it's their same attitude that they have toward extraterrestrials. And in recent months, extraterrestrials have been rebranded by the likes of Tucker Carlson as dark. Yeah, dark. So, in other words, dark foreigners from really far away are scary. And then, of course, the ones from over the border are also very scary. It's a mirror. And then you have this. And this just came out today, Daily Mail. What are they trying to tell us? Internal Pentagon reports warn that America is unequipped to defend itself from an alien invasion. So we have some UFO story here. So alien invasion, we're not equipped. And then we have the border invasion. And in both instances, it's a bifurcated psyop. Left wing loves the illegal immigrants. Left wing loves the aliens. Right wing thinks aliens are demons. Right wing wants closed borders. You see how that works? That's how I know it's a psyop. And anytime it's this compartmentalized, I just defer on over to Auto Hoaxology axiom number 47, which is if it's a bifurcated psyop, it's fake. Nothing is half real. Nothing is choose which side you want to believe and disbelieve the other side. Reality doesn't work that way, but the world stage does. And the world stage is not reality. The map is not the territory. The model is not reality. Although so many people live in it. And the more you're processed into the metaverse, the deeper you are into this thing, the more the world stage is your reality, augmented with all kinds of superstitions. Oswaldo says border security fear porn is so hot right now. It really is. They're terrified of military age males. And I made this point yesterday. Like, oh no, there's millions and millions of military age males, Muslim males. I'm like, okay, well, you're the same ones who say that there's a depopulation going on. So that solves that. And you're the same ones that say that masculinity is going away and we don't have traditional values. Well, you're importing a lot of people with traditional values. So I'm thinking, why don't we just bring in the Taliban and merge them with the MAGA ban? Problem solved. Traditional values, depopulation solved. Ready or Not 31 says, so tonight in the NBA, the Kobe narrative was running strong. One player scored the most points against an away team since Kobe. Another player scored against the Hawks the most points since Kobe. And check this out as far as coincidences. Today, there was a test explosion of a space habitat. Yep. They intentionally blew up a space habitat today. Coincidence? I don't think so. And again, when you go back and you look at the various NASA explosions and the Elon Musk explosions, NASA would actually blow people up, like the Challenger explosion, or fake blow people up. When Musk blew up the Falcon, it was dummies inside. Doesn't make a difference. We're talking about effigies. I'm saying that this is some kind of pagan ritual. It happens late January. And then, of course, Super Bowl is another pagan ritual to look forward to in a couple of weeks. In bulk, in milk, the weaning of the sun god. Now, we were talking about Taylor Swift being 33, being stalked by somebody 33. Do you remember Damar Hamlin? He's back in the news. I got to bring this guy back in as well. So many 33s. We'll get into this. Another one here, too. 33 touchdowns. Anyway, insane. More importantly, though, there was something else I wanted to get to. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro released a rap track with Tom McDonald. I was talking about this yesterday. And he's beating Eminem. He says, we know who the real Slim Shady is now. The track is called Facts. And it's got Ben Shapiro and Tom McDonald rapping about owning the libs, about facts don't care about your feelings. But it's doing surprisingly well, and he's been climbing the charts all day. I'll see if I can get you an excerpt from that. Again, a convoy of Jesus-loving truckers will converge on the southern border next week to stop the invasion. MAGA truckers are back. And you know, when they bring in the aliens, you can expect a bunch of shotgun-wielding MAGAs in trucks to go after it. Okay, here we go. This is Ben Shapiro and Tom McDonald, just a short clip here.
I've got the facts. My money like Lizzo, my pockets are fat. Homie, I'm
My money like Lizzo, my pockets are fat.
Let's look at the stats. I've got the facts. My money like Lizzo, my pockets are fat. Homie, I'm epic. Don't be a wap. Dog, it's a yarmulke. Homie, no.
Okay, that's again a few seconds of Ben Shapiro rapping. Beats Vivek doing cringe-worthy covers of Eminem, says Girl. Yeah, I think he's he's pretty good. He's sort of hypocritical because he used to say rap isn't music.
Like Lizzo, my pockets are fat. Homie, I'm epic. Don't be a wap. Dog, it's a yarmulke. Homie, no cap. Look at the graphs. Look at my charts. You're blowing money on strippers and cars. You going to prison. I'm on television. Dogs, no one knows who you are. Keep hating on me on the internet. My comment section all woke Karens. And I make racks off compound interest. Y'all live with your parents. Nikki, take some notes. I just did this for fun. All my people download this. Let's.
All right. Lyrical genius, yeah, or cringe AF. I don't know. I don't really judge. Tom McDonald's rap, to me, it's just like government rap. What I mean by that, he's good, but I think he's a fed. And what I mean is, all of his raps cater to mental-laced red pill consumers. It's all controlled opposition, establishment-friendly, conspiracy, conjecture, etc. It's not like he's really against the system. He's part of the mind war, in my opinion. G33 says probably not even him. AI. He already sounds like AI. He already sounds like a natural reader. So, I think it's him. Okay, a startling Pentagon report has surfaced warning that the United States is at risk and unprepared for an alien invasion. So again, like I was saying, what are the odds that we're about to be invaded by aliens just as the border breaks open? That both of these things happen at the same time. And long term, okay, what are the effects of an alien invasion? Like aliens from Jupiter or Mars or whatever. No more nations, one world. Aliens tell us, hey, you guys, too much war, you need to behave, can't be doing nukes, so we're all one world because the aliens unite us. Or they come down and attack us, and we fight back as one. And we are, again, united. So aliens are here to unite us. One world, no nations. And what are aliens called? Grays. Well, what is gray? Black and white. We're talking about the merging of all of the polarities. In other words, aliens represent humankind as far as the left goes, perfected in the future, genderless, raceless, gray, equal, one, no distinction, de-individualized, hive mind, collective, and ascended above the material world, that kind of thing. So there's a vision of the alien from outer space. But then, what does illegal alien invasion, ubiquitous alien invasion actually represent if you dissolve all the borders? One world, no more nation states. So in other words, world peace can be achieved when we just have one big nation. And I think that's solved with the destruction of all the borders or aliens from outer space. And I don't think aliens from outer space are real. And it may be that this is just another one of these psyops that has multiple layers of storytelling in order to move everything forward. I just think it's too conspicuous here that right now we find out, hey, we're not ready for alien invasions above and below. And then one more thing, track down the Donald Trump predicted programming in 1958. He showed up to protect people from the cosmic threat, as Trump shows up to build the wall, and Space Force, which is to protect us from aliens. I mean, presumably, if aliens attacked, it would be Space Force. Okay, let's move on here. This is from Laura Loomer. There are reports the Biden administration is threatening military action against the Texas National Guard. Right. Okay, in other news, this isn't a huge story unless you've been following it, just Trump drama. You know, he was sued for supposedly groping a woman and worse in a changing room at some department store years and years ago. We're talking about E. Jean Carroll. Anyway, E. Jean Carroll has been hitting Trump for his defamation, calling her crazy, he destroyed her reputation, and he gets sued, and now he has to pay her $83.3 million. $83.3 million. And here's his attorney. If you haven't seen her or heard her, this is who she is, and this is why he lost his money.
Somebody said to me, Alina, would you rather be smart or pretty? And I said, oh, easy. Pretty. I can fake being smart.
All right. Not so funny now after losing $83.3 million. Would you rather be smart or pretty? Pretty, I can fake being smart. Okay, it looks like there's marching going on, and there's some talk here. Influencers on the right are setting up a Black Swan event. Yes. Yes, exactly. You'll hear it from Tim Pool. All these individuals, Jack Pizzagate, Bumble, they're all going to say, this is it. Where we go one, we go all. March, and Trump, of course. And this is such a typical thing, too. If Trump says go to the border, people go to the border, they get set up. It's just like January 6th all over again. What are your thoughts on the Ben Shapiro rap? Anyone? I'd like to hear some more opinions here. They're getting mixed reviews. People on his side love it. Vince McMahon, by the way, stepped down from WWE. I read some pretty disgusting charges. Not charges, but claims. A lot of people are being hit right now all of a sudden with these kinds of claims. He's being accused of sex trafficking. And of course, some of that took place in Trump Tower. Salty Siren says creepy cringe. Yeah, MAGA rap has seen better days. I mean, that wasn't explicitly a MAGA rap. But no, all the right-wing rap is basically centered on owning libs, and it gets kind of old. Like, haha, I offended you, and I don't think they're all that offended. Okay, 4 years ago today, Kobe Bryant, this is from All Sports Are Rigged 2023. 4 years ago today, Kobe Bryant, the Luciferian, faked his death. They mocked us about his death 20 years earlier. Okay, so I'm going to play a clip, and this is from TikTok. Apparently, it has some kind of prediction of Kobe Bryant's death.
Dislocated my pinky.
On second thought, you know what? Those seats are fine.
Get her out.
You can't do this to me. He's part of my posse.
And the Knicks are just destroying the Lakers 126-75.
Destroying the Lakers 126. And there's Kobe Bryant to 75.
Lakers 126-75. No word yet.
Interesting. There's a lot there, so there's no reason to think he's actually dead, especially when you look at all the predictive programming. Ready or Not 31 says Ben is trash. Yeah. We were working on an episode of South Pole. I'd like to get that going again. It's just animation it's time consuming. But we were doing an animation where Ben Shapiro was throwing baby heads at the Wailing Wall to see how many would stick. And this was a response to his response to the 40 beheaded babies that didn't actually exist. They reported, 40 babies got decapitated by Hamas. And it was the 33rd anniversary of the Kuwait incubator baby psyop hoax, etc. And I was like, nobody wants these dead babies realer than Ben Shapiro. If they're not real, he's mad. Like he literally wants to grandstand on top of a pile of dead kids to make his points, and anybody who doesn't take his side is pro-Hamas. I mean, he really got into the 10-7 thing. All right, if you look at Kobe Bryant, there's a lot of pictures circulating. A number of people are bringing this stuff up. Just replete with 33s, Masonic stuff, hand signs, the usual. Where is he now? Don't know. Christ Actor Island. Ben Shapiro's been gloating all day. Here he is right behind Megan Thee Stallion. He says, "Hey Megan, we're coming for thee." His song Facts is right up against Hiss. And he mentioned WAP in his song. Isn't that one of hers? G33 says, "I'm telling you, he had help with a good producer. He can't lay it out like that on his own." I thought his rapping sounded exactly like his podcasting. They just put a beat on it. All right, moving on. Did you know that right before Kobe died, LeBron James passed him on the all-time NBA scoring list? Okay, now if you remember the cartoon I played from Legends of Chamberlain Heights, he said something about pass. They specifically mentioned pass, and then he blows up. I remember connecting it at this time, that LeBron James passed him right before. And there was this weird video about 2 days after, or the day Kobe Bryant, oh no, actually it's the day before, actually. This is what's so weird about it. There was this video where, in a very rambling way, LeBron James is describing how much Kobe meant to him. Like past tense, but it was before Kobe's death. Like, I happen to think that LeBron James is a terrible crisis actor. Like, he's given his lines, he's just not very convincing. Not only that, not only did LeBron James pass him on the all-time NBA scoring list, but it was done in Philadelphia, where Kobe went to school, and his last post on his Instagram was congratulating LeBron on passing him on the list. He died a few hours after. Okay, you know who interviewed? Because I was mentioning the connections between Kobe and 2020's Summer of Riots. Do you know who the last person alive to interview Kobe Bryant was? Stephen Jackson, twin of George Floyd. Do you remember when George Floyd died and there's all this talk, oh, it's my twin, it's my twin. And it was Stephen Jackson, who's 42 years old, said he was twins with the 46-year-old, George Floyd. In fact, his twin, Steve Jackson, is raising Gigi, who is the daughter of George Floyd. And doesn't Kobe Bryant have a daughter named Gigi as well? There was a number of interesting connections that I was kind of looking into. Fascinating. But yes, the last person to interview him alive. And I watched the interview. It's a podcast called All That Smoke. And at the end of it, Kobe Bryant and Steve Jackson do a Masonic grip, like right there on camera. Ready or Not says the joke about pass on Chamberlain Heights has to do with everything regarding Kobe Bryant won't pass the ball. Interesting. Well, the thing is, he says pass, and then the thing blows up. And he gets passed and it blows up. There seems to be some kind of a sequence linking there. Oh, WAP was Cardi B. Thank you. I haven't been... But yeah, that's right. I should have known that. Okay, let's see here. Elephant Tusk says, anyone else see that James O'Keefe video interviewing the woke LGBT congressional staffers spilling the beans on DC congressional sex parties? James O'Keefe interviews? I thought he was just doing dance videos. It's the weirdest thing. He's always doing these like very elaborate choreographed dance videos. And I think he might be a good dancer, but I think if he spent less time pretending to be a journalist and just spent more time dancing, he could just focus on that. But moreover, James O'Keefe is a fake investigative journalist. He's never uncovered a crisis actor. He's never exposed a psyop. He's never called out the media for what it actually is. He's a world stager. Okay, moving on. Oh, this is interesting. So many of these celebrities. Let's just go ahead and look at some of these, because these are who Kobe Bryant is probably hanging out with right now. He's hanging out with Michael Jackson, David Bowie, and Prince. Prince, and you'd have to be some kind of a narcissist or something to do this. He shows up at his own funeral, but disguised, of course, as his sister, who doesn't actually exist. So yes, Prince is his sister. And then you have Bowie showing up as Jack Stephen, who even has a little bit of duper's delight when he says, a part of me died when David Bowie died. And then you have, of course, Dave, who is Michael Jackson. No, they're all hanging out with Derek Chauvin, Adam Lanza, and all the other world stagers that we've grown to love. Okay, moving on here. I'm going through my Twitter feed. I was up all night following this thing with the border, but also keeping up with the LeBron James stuff. And Legends of Chamberlain Heights, I want to point this out too. You'll notice that many death fakers are called legends after the fact. Very common thing. Okay, so someone's looking at the cover art of Ben Shapiro's new song Facts with Tom McDonald, and they're both wearing these gray hoodies. One says, I don't care if I offend you, and the other says, Facts don't care about your feelings. And Death Metal Viking says, this looks like the two side effects of drinking alcohol with NyQuil. I thought so too, because Ben Shapiro always strikes me as very clean cut, squeaky clean, yet here he looks kind of haggard, like he was like on an all-night bender. So I'm like, maybe in order to make him look a little more street, like they made him, I don't know, stay up late. But yeah, I agree with this. Both of them do look kind of like side effects of something. Now this was new to me. Kobe Bryant started the I Can't Breathe campaign. He started that. Big deal. This is a big deal because I Can't Breathe, again, a better China, perfect anagram. 4 months after his death, George Floyd was killed by Derek Chauvin. I can't breathe. You know, he was saying I can't breathe before he was on the ground, before he was being kneeled on. He was saying I can't breathe in the back of the SUV. He's like, I can't breathe. Can you guys put me on the ground? Because he was a crisis actor and he was just nervous. It was like one shot, one take. The director wasn't there to say, no, wait, George, wait till you're on the ground. But it doesn't matter. The public doesn't have any kind of standards when it comes to these psyops. They just believe anything. So he's wearing an I Can't Breathe shirt. All right, let's see here. Kansas City Swift stalked by David Raven Crow. And they play against each other this weekend. Yeah, we talked about something, Taylor Swift being stalked, and her stalker's got to be the happiest man in the world now because of all those leaked images that were created by AI. I haven't looked for them, but apparently somebody generated a lot of, I guess, I don't know what you would call it. You know, when someone makes fake nudes of somebody else. It's not revenge porn, but there's something. I guess it would be appropriating their likeness. J-Man33 says, maybe the death fakers all live in a better China. Yeah, I've seen these reports of replicas of American cities built in China. Have you seen those? Maybe that's where Kobe and all the other death fakers hang out. The ones who don't get recycled and put into crap rolls. And some of them never get to Crisis Actor Island. Look at Waynell Sexton. She's got to be like past retirement age. And poor crisis actors. Like, really, they could probably summon tears at the next fake school shooting if they just think about their dismal futures. Because Hollywood was able to protest, hey, you're not going to replace us with AI. You're not going to replace us with digital clones. Well, there's no guild for crisis actors. There's no real government actors guild. We call them gags as a joke, but there is no such protection. Radical right-wing preacher and GOP candidate for a seat in the Texas state legislature, Joshua Fierstein, is offering to lead an armed militia to the border. Now, this is great to know. So you have somebody who's going to be possibly in the Texas state legislature, and he's leading an armed civilian militia to the border. He says, as an impending showdown with the federal government seems inevitable, allow me to be the first to offer Governor Abbott my services. Myself, along with several former Special Forces operators, are happy to lead an armed civilian militia to the border. As a Texan, we must defend ourselves from enemies foreign and domestic. He says domestic in all caps. I sincerely pray conflict can be avoided, but not at the price of tyranny. Should you need us, we are here. And he has a picture of himself with a big gun. Joshua Feuerstein. Now, this is all tying in to Waco. This really does all go back to Waco. Donald Trump kicking off his campaign in Waco, the final battle, a confrontation with the government. The turning point has been reached. Salty Siren says, you know, fentanyl is leaked to a respiratory depression, aka I can't breathe, and comes from a better China. Fascinating. So we have some connections here with that, of course. I Can't Breathe, fentanyl. Then you have well, it was before COVID, you had a lot of stuff about vapes and all kinds of talk about vape deaths. If you remember, we called it vape AIDS. It was a big deal in like 33 states before COVID kind of replaced it. Very interesting, though, connection there. And of course, I Can't Breathe also applies to Gaia, Mother Earth. She can't breathe. All right, moving on. Quentin Tarantino, we may look into that. I'm just seeing a lot of recycled stuff from 2016. Like, for example, people are talking about how Tarantino is a list of executed people. Jack Nicholson, Johnny Depp, Will Smith, arrested and executed, according to the QAnoners. Michael Moore, Alec Baldwin. It's an old list. I'm seeing a lot of recycled QAnon stuff. It's just kind of frustrating. Just that people have no attention span, so they fall for it the second time. And then, of course, if it wasn't complicated enough, wondering about Trump getting assassinated and all that foreshadowing, we have Alex Jones here suggesting that the deep state is going to take out Biden before the election.
My mother never gets involved in politics. She's a Christian and historian and really smart person, and she's just very private. But my mother, for 3 years, has told me they're going to assassinate Biden to bring in martial law because the Spirit has told her. And she's been very, very direct about it.
All right, so the Spirit told Alex Jones's mom for the last 3 years that this is going to happen, and he's finally telling us. Good to know. And of course, when or if they pull something, and I could see that. I mean, really, it could easily happen, and you know where it's going to lead, obviously. Oh yeah, protest convoy headed to the southern border is calling itself an army of God. This is a, quote, biblical, monumental moment that has been put together by God, a convoy organizer said on a planning call. We are besieged on all sides by dark forces of evil. Blessed are the peacemakers, the sons of God. It's time for the remnant to rise. The remnant is from the book of Revelation, and these are the ones who stay faithful to Jesus Christ, in the time of crisis. So the remnant is headed to the border. Biblical. Working on behalf of God, Ruth Braunstein, assistant professor of sociology at the University of Connecticut and author of Prophets and Patriots, says, we have a politically volatile situation, which will become more so because of this rhetoric. They believe they're working on behalf of God. Yeah, and they believe that Trump is God. They believe, there's all kinds of insane beliefs right now. And what do they all have in common? They all want the world to end so they can, build back better in their own way. But just more stuff. A Biden assassination thing doesn't make any sense to me. It's like he's going to go anyway. Okay, moving on. Let's go through my minds.com/infinite plane society. I've been getting into a lot of debates with anti-vaxxers, and I think the topic is relevant for a few reasons, but I want to make my final point on it. And I think I can sum it up as that not taking sides is a valid position. And I think there's not a lot of tolerance for people who don't take sides. In my opinion, it's a psyop, and anti-vax is a mirror of pro-vax. And I think people get caught up in the red herring element of it all. Focusing on something that has them distracted from the nature of the game itself. And the game itself, in my opinion, is more about brainwash. Think about this. What would be more of a power move by the elite? Brainwashing 7 billion people simultaneously by installing a new religion on them all, or doing a little bit of harm to some of them. You know, it doesn't really quite add up. And its use as a politically divisive tool to divide people as saved and unsaved makes a lot more sense anyway. But I'm always open to conversation about it as long as it's intellectually honest. And a lot of what I've been getting from the anti side are arguments that I'm used to getting from the mainstream media. Like, for example, what about the kids? One of them's like, well, what about the kids? You can't take a position on something when there are children involved. So here's an example of one of my little discussions with an anti-vaxxer. I said, I don't have an opinion on it because I think it's a mind war game. It's like choosing a religion. And my position here is I want to be left out of this two-pronged, fear-based psyop. And what he said to me is, when you have a child, you have a responsibility to keep them healthy. You have to research the topic on whether you're pro or anti. So I asked him, well, what religion are your kids? Are they homeschooled? And I asked him this because if he's bringing up children, like, well, what about the children? Well, then we have to bring it up in every instance. And then we're getting into what we're really looking at here, I think, are people making their own decisions and one group trying to get the other group to not make their own decision, and that group actually thinking that the group trying to stop them are the ones in the wrong. Like, you just can't win. It's designed that way. It's not meant to be reconciled. But at this point, anyone who can't see the bigger picture that you're being dragged into a bifurcated psyop, you know, you're welcome to run around in circles. But I think it's clear at this point that 3/11 truth is just 9/11 truth all over again. And 3/11 truth, of course, is pandemic truth. And we're seeing it still with the borders. Post 9/11, people are saying, oh, the borders are open and terrorists are coming in from the Middle East. Well, it's the same thing now, but now it's from China. They recycle, but they change the bad guys, change the costumes. Girl says, who sends children into a corrupt school system that brainwashes and traumatizes them? Well, I would say that 99% of the people who say that you have to unplug from the matrix and not do the vax, they send their kids to the public schools. I guarantee it. But I don't think it's appropriate to drag children into a debate about this thing because it's like human shields. It's the same argument that the anti-gun people use when they say, you know, about the AR-15 thing. It's the same type of an argument, and it's based on arguing in defense of martyrs who may not even exist. All right, so we've talked about Ben Shapiro and his rap. I don't think it's all that great, but it's rising in the charts, but that's, again, mostly due to their hype machine. I mean, these influencers have an entire infrastructure for making garbage go viral. They can make anything go viral. Okay, we do have a statement from Biden from just a few hours ago regarding the border. He says the border's broken, let's be clear. Congress needs to provide funding for anyone who's demanding tougher border patrol. This is the way to do it. Pass a bipartisan bill and I will sign it. Something bipartisan. Well, it's going to get interesting as we see the MAGA convoy heading down there. Ben Shapiro went down there. He says Joe Biden's America is broken. This only comes up during election years, so I'm not really perturbed by it. He says, I want to thank God. This is Ben Shapiro's Twitter feed. I want to thank God, Tom McDonald, and my parents who paid for 15 years of classical violin lessons so I could become the #1 rapper in America. So I guess he made it. All right, we have a map from the movie Civil War. And if you compare it to the states that are aligned with Texas, it's practically a match. We're talking about the movie Civil War that's going to come out on April the 12th. Very interesting. Again, this is right out of a movie. Also a continuation of Leave the World Behind. Portal AI said, oh, Immortal AI says, I didn't hear much violin in the song. It's all clickbait. You know, politics is mostly clickbait these days. It's not about principle. All right, moving on. So Kobe Bryant started the I Can't Breathe campaign. That's a fascinating tidbit there. So here's something that I found. I was looking up something I referenced yesterday. I was talking about the Quran, and I found it. The people of paradise will laugh at the fire. So after Allah admits the people of paradise in, then they'll call out their opponents who are in hell, rebuking them and scolding them. So this is the MAGA ban, looking at all their dead celebrities, saying, oh look, Tom Hanks has been executed. Ellen DeGeneres has been executed. The QAnoners for 8 years now have been throwing out names and faces of people that they believe have been killed by the white hats at Guantanamo. So I'm looking at this as the MAGA ban. And so the MAGA ban reminds me of the people of paradise laughing at those in the fire. Quote, and the dwellers of paradise will call out to the dwellers of fire, saying, we have indeed found true what you have found true, and the criers will proclaim, the curse of Allah is on the wrongdoers. You will recognize their faces. They will be, and it goes on and on about how they are burning in hell, and you're looking down at them laughing. So yes, the people of paradise will laugh at those in the fire. I see this type of attitude towards their enemies among the QAnoners. And QAnon is definitely a domestic violent extremist construct meant to be the domestic version of radical Islam. And this is all basically the next 9/11 is going to be a white nationalist 9/11. And this is the buildup. They've just updated their template. And it's very templated. I mean, it's intriguing when you look at it from this perspective, like the Quran radicals replaced now by the domestic QAnon radicals. Quran radicals want to take out the deep state. QAnon radicals want to take out the deep state. The great Satan, deep state, same thing. It's this idea also of the West as the great Satan and Western values. Well, if you look at the trad right, that's why I call them MAGA ban. Their values are actually very much against what the Taliban is against. Like you'll find all the right-wing MAGA ban influencers mad that women aren't covering themselves at the gym. They're not wearing burqas on the treadmills. It's a thing. And then you have the trad right view on Israel, which is very consistent with the Taliban view of Jews in Israel. Incels. Well, what is an incel? The reason why incels aren't, and it means involuntarily celibate, it's because they believe that Western women are corrupt and they should be at home, not at work. They shouldn't be, you know, voting and getting educated, but they should be having babies in the kitchen. So the incels are celibate because Western women are corrupt. And then so the story is incels go out and they kill a bunch of people with a gun, which is usually terminated by a suicide. So they're kind of like suicide bombers. And why do the jihadis blow themselves up? Well, to go to heaven and get their virgins. And so the sexually repressed terrorist suicide bomber has been reinvented. The incel has replaced the terrorist in the terror cell. Same thing, same enemy. Here's a picture from earlier this year, or was it a couple years ago? This is Elon Musk, who went to the border in a black cowboy hat last year to see for himself. And the hat wasn't backward, as many people had reported. But here he is, making the Hail Satan hand sign with the governor of Texas in front of a painting of the Alamo. Interesting. Just the timing of it. What do you make of that? I mean, there can't be a coincidence, especially when you look into Musk's role with Disease X, Twitter, X, and the opening of the floodgates to anti-immigrant rhetoric from the right, etc. Mango Penguin is here, says, I'm a New Mexican. Are you? Interesting. Yeah, we are a very blue state here. sanctuary city. And if there is a border invasion, I would be probably privy to it. I mean, we did have an alien invasion here. They landed in Roswell. I went there. I went to Corona Field during Corona's lockdown. I went to Corona Field, which is where the aliens supposedly landed. Again, the illegal alien psyop and the alien invasion psyop are connected. The partisan split down the middle. The right wing hates illegal aliens and alien aliens. And the left wing loves illegal aliens and they worship extraterrestrials. All right, let's move on here. Barack Obama's daughter, Malia, has a film called The Heart, which just premiered. Now again, the Obamas have a film production company called Higher Ground, which has some kind of flood reference built into it. I haven't watched it, but the name of it, The Heart, kind of stood out to me. There's got to be some significance to it. You know, we talked about the significance of the heart last year with Damar Hamlin. All of the references to the heart. The anti-vaxxers were calling every death a result of a vax, but the heart was being brought up by all these psyops. Damar Hamlin dying on the field. Everyone kneels around him, then he gets resurrected. The Super Bowl was, of course, the red, all the dancers in red. And, of course, the heart is a symbol of the goddess. It's the same thing as the chalice. So these are all symbols. Like, for example, you look at your playing cards. Add up the numbers on all the playing cards. You get 365. You know, for the year. 4 suits, 4 seasons. And the hearts, cups, water signs, it all breaks down astrotheologically. But the heart is very much a big part of 2023 at the beginning of the year. And so her film is called The Heart. G33 says The Heart Corona. Interesting. Well, I look for themes, and it was pretty clear last year that hearts were a big thing. You had the song Heart Part 5 by Lamar Kendrick. All right, let's move on here. I got it trolled by Dave J. Just want to say shout out to Dave J. You may not know who he is. Kind of a stoned church lady transvestigationist twatter troll who has a bit of credibility because he had a seemingly accurate guess about JonBenet Ramsey being Kate Perry. But other than his conjecture about a raped dead girl in a basement, nobody's ever really heard of him. So if you haven't heard of him, that's why. Okay, here we have another JFK Jr. contender. I wanted to get into this yesterday. At first I wrote it off because there's this guy with a white beard and a green MAGA hat. And a number of people said, oh, that's JFK Jr. So I'm like, wait, I thought Vivek Ramaswamy was JFK Jr. No, it's Edward X. Young. And so looking into this guy, Edward X. Young.
Going up.
Well,
if you haven't seen him, he's...
Going up.
Well, I'm Edward.
Here he is. Here's his voice. You can listen to him. He's wearing a green MAGA hat.
I'm from Brick, New Jersey. That's in South Jersey. It was a long ride getting here.
And you said, how many Trump rallies is this for you?
This will be my 67th Trump rally.
Okay, so this guy's gone to 67 Trump rallies. So I'm looking into him, and he's done a number of movies, and he's also a makeup artist, special effects artist. So an actor, special effects artist. His name was Edward X. Young. And he's believed to be JFK Jr. in disguise. He's gone to 67 Trump rallies. Well, he's in a movie called The Lich, Hillary's Worst Nightmare. He plays in a movie called Witch's Blood, and he plays someone named Uncle John John, which is kind of strange. Anyway, 777666 has done a lot of research on this guy. He's played a cult leader in a movie called Flesh for the Beast, which would be leader of Q, I suppose. Now here's a picture of his face, just to give you an idea. Could JFK Jr. exist behind that? I would say yes. I mean, this is well within the realm of fakeability, assuming it's him, which I'm not, but... Okay, Edward X. Young Jr. plays God in a movie called Burn in Hell. Very prolific actor. All these underground films, Zombies Incorporated, but all of them had these weird tie-ins. Actor, special effects, makeup department, attends 67 Trump rallies, and is believed to be JFK Jr. Immortal AI says extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Exactly. Or at least evidence. Most people don't even bring evidence. It's just a claim. It's what I call say. Oh, I saw it on TV. I saw it on TV, therefore it's real. Vince McMahon named sex toys after WWE wrestlers. That's not the worst of what I've heard, but I'm not going to believe any of it. I don't know the story of it, but there's all kinds of weird stuff about Vince McMahon trafficking women around to people around WWE, but someone else has been doing some digging, and it seems like this is almost some kind of perhaps a psyop, if it's or it's predicted in a lot of the soap opera stuff from 20 years ago that seem to be predicting this. You know, various scenes on the WWE stage where somebody's saying these things about how evil McMahon is and stuff, and it just seems like foreshadowing. But he just resigned. Vince McMahon, WWE founder, resigns amid sex trafficking allegations. Geometry Effect News says, you mean to tell me the guy who is perfectly synced with every last ritual sacrifice of former WWE stars is in the sex trafficking game too? Funny this comes on the anniversary of Kobe Bryant's death, and his birthday is Kobe Bryant Day. Okay, what is Kobe Bryant Day? I didn't know there was a Kobe Bryant Day. But apparently Kobe Bryant Day is Vince McMahon's birthday. Oh, August 24th. Okay. Interesting. 824. Now this is ringing some bells from 2020. 824. That's right. So after the George Floyd psyop, you had Dave Chappelle release something on Netflix, and it wasn't comedy, or at least it wasn't funny, but I never really find him funny, so I can't really judge. But he released a special called the 846 special, and it was a 27-minute thing, and of course it referenced George Floyd, but also 846 is when 9/11 starts. All kinds of fascinating things with these numbers. But anyway, in this, he describes something here about how he was born at 8:46 a.m. and he was numerically connected to Kobe Bryant. Something about the numbers 824. I'll see if I can find some more information on that. But yes, Chappelle's time on his birth certificate is 8:46 a.m. the same time 9/11 kicked off. The time 8 minutes 46 seconds that Floyd was kneeled on, and the sun set in the Twin Cities at 8:46. Just another indication that he's part of the Psyop entertainment complex. But there's something else in here. In this 27-minute piece, I think he touches upon something about his great-grandfather visiting the White House and having some kind of role standing up for civil rights that he was sort of reprising. Interesting, though. We'll probably get back to this later. I'm just looking for new things about this Kobe Bryant Hoaxiversery, and a lot of people are pulling stuff up. Very intriguing. Alright, continuing through my notes. Mango Penguin says, I haven't been into watching comedians ever since we lost George Carlin. Well, George Carlin, we were talking about him recently. George Carlin had a special called I Like It When a Lot of People Die. And it was altered and pulled, and it was actually released posthumously. But in it, he talked about Osama bin Laden, planes flying into buildings. It was a pre-9/11 comedy tour that was replete with predictive programming for 9/11. Someone asked, have you looked into the Dr. Jan Helper Hayes character? Very interesting woman on the world stage. No, I have not. If you want to post a link. She works for a DoD task force doing psych assessment for the... Okay, yes, send me a link. I'm interested. Now, I was being facetious here, but I said, anti-vaxxers don't care if your children get the AR-15 shot at school. They just don't want them getting the COVID-19 shot. Just another point I'm making here about how these issues only matter to half of the political spectrum. So again, anti-vaxxers don't care if your children get the AR-15 shot. They just don't want them getting the COVID-19 shot. And you'll notice anti-AR-15 people, anti-gun people are all about, let's sue the manufacturers. Well, what are anti-vaxxers all about? Suing the manufacturers. But needles versus guns is another one of these instances where you can see evidence of a split down the middle, bifurcated mind war psyop. And I want to maintain that not taking sides is not only an option, it's the only sensible, rational option. And it's the only truly anti-war position. If you're taking a side, don't pretend like you're anti-war, because you're pro-mind war and you're taking part in it. I would say that media skeptics, and I'm not talking about apathetics who don't give an F, I'm talking about media skeptics who know it's fake and don't engage accordingly. We're not inadvertently taking part in it. We are only observing because we know how fake it is, which makes us anti-war, because it's all mind war. So it's not a middle ground. It's not lukewarm. In fact, it's a very engaged, but from the outside perspective. It's skepticism as a stable philosophical posture. If you want to read Auto Hoaxology 101, I made it available as an ebook. I posted a link there in the chat. I'm ordering more hardbacks to be selling, so if you're still waiting, you're going to get them. Don't worry. In fact, there's like 3 or 4 people who still need them. I've been trying to make sure that all the past orders have been fulfilled, but we've had dozens of copies go out, which is good. It means that if I get struck by lightning tomorrow, the work will continue. I put a link in the chat again that is to get the Auto Hoaxology 101. My objective for 2024 is to take this into something of a book tour. And anyone purchasing a PDF copy tonight, you not only get to read it and get yourself up to speed on our glossary, but you're going to support the next batch. I'm trying to order 100 copies, and then I'll do my first reading. And I want to do a reading / discussion of Auto Hoaxology 101, inviting a number of people from the public. I think there's a number of conversations to be had, and there's a big conversation that we need to have about does it matter? Because people who are in love with the fear, people who are still anti, people who still think that you're fighting the info war, they seem to think that fakery is a tactic. That, yeah, they fake some things, but the big thing is real. It's going to go kinetic. So what's the truth here? Does fakery not matter because it's merely a tactic and it's, for the most part, real? Or is fakery the standard operating procedure and the most important thing to focus on at this point? It's one or the other. Are you giving the intrinsic truthiness of the media the benefit of the doubt, like, oh, they're mostly telling the truth? Or are you already accepting that the screen is a lie filter that everybody's required to put on because the billions are being massified? Their minds are being massified. I mean, if you can't see it as a religious paradigm coming out of that screen, if you actually think that you're being informed in many different ways, then you maybe haven't taken a step back skeptically. And what I'm just saying here is most truthers have not. In fact, it's the opposite. The normies have their faces pressed up against the screen. In fact, their eyeballs are so close to the screen that they don't even recognize that their reality is filtered every second of their lives. Those are just normies. Conspiracy theorists stick their head through the screen. They are actually existing in a subset of MSM. So mainstream media promotes a worldview. You know, maybe there's aliens, dinosaurs existed, a big rock hit the earth, global warming's real. You know, everything happened according to the history books more or less, and whatever's reported on the mainstream news will make it into the history books. So the official version of mainstream media. That's where most people live. Now, conspiracy theorists, they don't necessarily step away from that. They go deeper. They say, yeah, 9/11 happened, but it was space lasers, and it was Jews, or it was skull and bones. It wasn't Muslims. So they add on to the MSM. So everything in the mainstream media universe exists for them, and then some. For example, well, there's so many examples. Without going too far into it, I just want to say I call them MSM+. Space lasers is an example. Like, oh, it's not enough that the mainstream is saying climate change caused Maui to burn. No, they got to add, oh no, it was actually lasers. We agree with the mainstream media that there was a fire and that it was crazy, but it was space lasers. I'm like, that's MSM+. Again, it's a subset of MSM. Now, if you're a skeptic, you pull your head out of the MSM box entirely. You step back from the monolith. I suggest 6 feet. I suggest you put 6 feet of distance between you and the nearest portal and recognize that that is merely a filter, but the world still exists. Like, this is the objective reality they try to hide from you. And within the screen, you're given the desert of the designated real. I mean, this is what I've been referring to as like, it's like they augment your reality, but it's not enough to just trust the screen, because deep fakery has become such a big problem now that most people can't tell real from fake, and so now they have to designate what is real and what is fake. You know why 10/7 didn't really have a huge impact? I don't know if anybody still cares about that. I don't think anybody... Is anybody still crying about fake dead babies? You know, rubber dolls? Surgical training dummies that bleed and cry? The reason why nobody cares is that the reason why Ben Shapiro, who was raging and weeping about 40 decapitated babies a few months ago, is rapping in some trivial little song in the culture war. That's a bigger deal to him than 40 decapitated babies. Why is that? Nobody cares about 10/7 because the propaganda doesn't have the impact, because it was too questionable. Nobody was believing it automatically. Not that they're full-blown skeptics, because they're only selectively skeptical. For example, pro-Hamas, or I guess the word is pro-Palestine. The pro-Palestine people believe all the deaths on that side, and they disbelieve the deaths on the other side. And the people who are pro-Israel believe that, oh yeah, it's just Hollywood. The Palestinians fake it all. But the deaths in Israel, the 40 babies, oh, that's real. You see, selective skepticism. They don't get out of the box. Cygirl says Lahaina was definitely engineered arson. That's an interesting point. It's one of three things: climate change, natural, or something added into it. And look, I don't believe in climate change. Maybe something natural, but the timing of it and everything else, it happened on the day of 8/8 Lionsgate, the whole portal thing. It seemed to me that it was a movie set and special effects. Engineered arson makes sense. Targeted, some things burned, but like, I don't think it was climate change. I don't think it was space lasers. And I think when you say space lasers, or when people say that, it makes it easy to discredit special effects, Hollywood special effects, CGI. I mean, I don't know. A lot of the stuff out there just seemed very questionable, as though these were movie props. But it's a closed movie set. I don't think that there were 1,500 children incinerated by lasers. And all the people who were crying about the Do kids sort of forgot about that. Like, who's still outraged about the Do kids? But again, it's one of those things where it's either climate change or space lasers. Well, what about the third option? A staged, as in like a movie or a movie set. I think that's a viable option, given how often everything else they do is a movie set, and then you throw in the fact that the chief of police who oversaw the Vegas shooting on 10/1/2017, the Harvest Festival, Route 91, Psyop. Yeah, that guy. He was also the chief of police over this area in Maui where this event happened. And you know what they did after? They sprayed soil tackifier on Maui, which is to prevent the soil from, flooding, from sinking down into the water. And it was pink. They sprayed it all pink. Interesting, just because it ties into, if you followed the summer of psyops, or the psyops of the summer, it was like Barbie, everything pink, and then they're spraying Maui pink, and I'm like, okay, there's something to it. Because we were talking about these uncharacteristically intense fires out there in the islands, and all this talk about Oppenheimer and the nuke testing, Bikini Islands. There's something up there with them spraying it pink. Oswaldo says, new thingers gonna new thing. Yeah, well, Chinese space lasers are like the updated version of the Chinese space laser, of Jewish space lasers. Now, something else too. A year before that, there was a movie that was out on Netflix, or a series called Alice in Borderland. And in Alice in Borderland, they're playing this game kind of like Squid Games. It's this really sadistic kind of game where they're running through these cities, competing with others, obstacles, etc. But if you lose, lasers come down from the sky and incinerate you. And there was a clip that went viral that showed somewhere out there among the islands there were these lasers that they said was likely from Chinese satellites on the time lapse, and it happened to look exactly like the movie Alice in Borderland. So we already had some kinds of lasers like that preceded the fires there. And they did look exactly like Alice in Borderland. Chinese satellite lasers recorded over Hawaii. This was February 2023. Bright green laser lines shoot across the night sky. NASA believes they're from Chinese satellites. So here you have lasers. And this was, again, about 5 months before Lahaina. And, of course, these ominous lasers, as they're described here, viral proof of lasers starting fires. It's right out of the movie Alice in Borderland. All right, let's move on. Dave Koresh. Dave Koresh, American cult leader, played a central role in the Waco siege of 1993. The Branch Davidians was an offshoot of Seventh-day Adventists, and he claimed to be the final prophet. So this stood out to me as notable, considering that Waco, again, triggered by weapons violations, 1.6 million rounds, 1.6, sound familiar? And then Trump kicks off his campaign in Waco during the anniversary month of the Waco incineration. Dave Koresh incinerated Burning Man, 33 years old. And the incineration of Dave Koresh radicalized Alex Jones, who was at 1.6, and Timothy McVeigh, who was electrocuted at 33. But something else that stood out to me here is that this is an offshoot of the Seventh-day Adventists. And they believed, they knew the date that Jesus would come back. And they had something called the Great Disappointment when it didn't happen. Now, he was supposed to show up sometime, I would think it was, let's see if I can get the year, I think it was 1860 something. Anyway, they had a date. It's like October something. I'll see if I can find it. But he didn't show up. And instead of saying, okay, let's hang it up, we were wrong, they built or grew a bigger organization off of this. They called it the Great Disappointment. But the story is, the second coming of Christ was imminent. October 22nd, 1844. But this idea here, again, this is kind of preceded them, and it led to the Seventh-day Adventists. They said October 22nd would be the day. And I'm like, wait a minute, this sounds like JFK's coming back on November 22nd, 2021. JFK Jr. is coming back. Now, the founder of the Oath Keepers, the guy with the black eye patch, he was one of these individuals arrested for January 6th. His son says that the QAnon movement is strongly based on Seventh-day Adventism. And that's why this is standing out to me right now. Because you have a connection between Dave Koresh, Donald Trump, Waco, January 6th, Alex Jones, McVeigh, domestic violent extremists, and Seventh-day Adventist-like cult beliefs about a prophet, an apocalyptic scenario revolving around some kind of prophet return of Christ. Whether it's JFK, JFK Jr., Donald Trump, you see the pattern here. And then, of course, the interpretation of the book of Revelation is all connected to this, and this is pretty much stuff that's been brought back into the MAGA via Q. So anyway, Dave Koresh, again, another one of these 33-year-old cult leaders. Quarantine the 33-year-olds for a year, we'll have world peace. All right, moving on. Joined by Scott1873 in D-Live. Thanks for joining. This is Kobe Psyop Hoaxiversery and World Stage Deforestation. So the purpose of World Stage Deforestation is this. There are too many limited hangout operations that focus on big psyops. Like, we have to keep on beating the drums about this or that. And I would say that if you look at it from the perspective of a monolithic media and psyops as the norm, not the exception, it makes a lot more sense. And then you don't get caught up in these highly polarized singular events. Again, there are more psyops than like Sandy Hook, 9/11, and COVID-19. You'd think those are the only three things to be skeptical about, but there are so many things in between. And the very existence of predictive programming and the fact that we can use it as a predictive model itself underscores everything we're saying. There's no meaningful distinction between news and entertainment. Predictive programming isn't the result, as has been said for decades by truthers. It's not dark occultists absolving themselves of karmic repercussions by telling us what they're going to do to us. They actually say that. This is a trutherism. Truthers will say, yeah, the reason why we have predictive programming is they know it's going to be really bad. But God won't be as mad if they put it on TV first, because then we consent. As ridiculous as that sounds, that is the standard interpretation. The movie White Noise came out. Train derailment, Ohio, mushroom cloud, toxic airborne event. A few weeks later, Life Follows Netflix, train derailment, East Palestine, Ohio, toxic airborne event. Even CNN, even mainstream AP sources had to say, wow, this is interesting. It's just like the movie. And many of the extras from the movie are being evacuated from East Palestine. Crisis actors, or actors becoming crisis actors. Again, life follows psyops, or life imitates psyops. Psyops imitate life. It's so merged at this point. But InfoWars came out and they had this ominous music. And their whole point was, dark occultists need to tell us what they're going to do. I'm like, you know what? That is a purposeful missteering of people's attention away from the fact that they use the media in all of its facets monolithically to communicate the history that we're living, because they wrote the history in advance. It's not happening organically. All the fake news that we uncover goes into the history books. Like, our opinions don't have any bearing on what is going to be taught in the universities or in the schools. It doesn't matter that we're right. So the newsbenders are writing our history. Like, we call it news, but what is news but history? And what is history but a record of mainstream media going back? A record of those with position and power and influence to write the history. Our conquerors, in other words. And my point being, We are living the history that's been prefabricated, and we're just watching them go through the motions and reacting to it as though it wasn't already scripted in advance. So if you're triggered by the news, it's because you are plugged into the now. And they need you in the end times. This is why you got Waco and Apocalypse and all this last battle stuff. Because if you think that the world's about to end, you're not going to be able to unplug from the emotional attachment to the immediacy of it, the urgency of it, the current thingerisms. All right, let's see. I think we've covered quite a lot. There's, again, an army of MAGAs heading down to the border. Ben Shapiro is the #1 rapper in America in 2024. Donald Trump calls for all willing states to deploy National Guard to the Texas border. So we're waiting for that to blow up. Donald Trump is worried that there's a bunch of Hannibal Lecters coming across the border.
Numbers of terrorists. The United States is more vulnerable from inside terror attacks than at any time in its history. Biden is allowing people from prisons and jails. He's allowing people from mental institutions and insane asylums. Silence of the Lambs. Hannibal Lecter, remember?
Insane asylum, Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal Lecter is all coming over here across the border. If you haven't subscribed, I'll send a link. And I'm also doing a bio about the Infinite Plane Society, the think tank, for people who have never heard of it. Go to ips.bio. And you can also get on the newsletter, and you'll get all these images, like penguins with chainsaws. If you have any questions about what any of these mean, we're happy to explain it. But we're in the process of clear-cutting forests of misinformation, while the so-called truthers are basically running laps around big trees, chasing stale red herrings. And we're past all of that. Again, happy Hoaxiversery, Kobe Bryant, hanging out there at Crisis Actor Island, not dead. Who knows, maybe he's friends with Ashley Babbitt, who's also not dead. Inconveniently, for the J6 believers, so many just cannot contemplate the fact that they've been duped. They want to stick with the dark, morbid fiction, the nightmare. Blue pillars are dreaming. It's blissful. It's apathetic because they believe all the evil stuff is happening, the weapons of mass destruction. They believe it, but they don't care because they're apathetic. Red pillars have a conscience, but they're living a nightmare. Is there a middle ground between apathetic dreamer, blissfully ignorant, or activist, agitated, red pillar having a nightmare, which is like the right-wing version of wokeism, like everybody's asleep and everything's crazy? Is there a middle ground? No. There's no middle ground. The only place you can go is outside, and outside the off-world stage perspective, and there is not a platform for that. There's not a platform for media skepticism at the starting point, except for this, except for the think tank. Someone just sent me this. There's a game called Hitman Agent 47. They've been building up this thing for some time, haven't they? And now Trump walking around with the 47 on his hat on the side of his head. All of it's very ominous. Elephant Tusk says, Tim Osmond radicalized me and all I got with this was a stupid t-shirt. Look, I'll say this. You have been de-radicalized. You have been inoculated, if you think about it. You've been inoculated against mind viruses. Whereas the public has mind aids, no mental immune system. If they see it on the screen, they believe it. But you've been de-radicalized. Because if you follow this through to its logical conclusion, you would recognize that there's nothing to get active about until we can figure out what is actually real and what isn't real, what is controlled up and what isn't. So to me, it's all about suspending judgment until we have more information, not being goaded into reacting. Not only reacting, but reacting on the basis of emotions and feelings. Tomorrow is Infinite Plane Saturn Day. We'll do open phones. We have a lot to talk about, and who knows what else we'll do. I'm thinking about maybe another Zoom conference this weekend. Let me see if there's anything else in the chat. Again, if you're waiting on a copy of Auto Hoaxology 101, I'll be sending those out here in the next week, and you can get the digital version, and I'm probably going to put it up on Amazon here very soon, but I wanted to prioritize everybody here first. I asked the question last night, does depopulation balance out the border crisis? So those who are worried about millions and millions of illegal aliens coming over, aren't you taking comfort in the fact that the depopulation agenda will solve that problem? You got to look for the silver linings. Anyway, this has been great. Thanks for hanging out. I'm going to put a link in the chat to pick up the ebook Auto Hoaxology 101 and sign up for the newsletter. This is One Eye Jack and the Shells, Pope Elon.
It's like, I mean, we're all going to die someday. And if you're going to pick some place to die, then why not Mars?
And one more thing, we're going back to the 24/7, so this isn't going to end. So if you are in the chat, it's going to stay open.
You know, if we're born on Earth, why not die on Mars? Seems like maybe it'd be kind of exciting. But so I think, given the choice of dying on Earth or dying on Mars, I'd say, yeah, sure, I'll die on Mars.